Yo, you're watching Black Comics Universe, presented by Peep Game Comics, exclusively here on The Experience. Please help us out by hitting share and giving The Experience a like and a follow. Then make sure to tune in for our original programming 7 days a week. The Black Comics Universe streams every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on all DSPs, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Also, please follow us on the IG, Instagram at Black Comics Universe, and check out our website, blackcomicsuniverse.com. All right. Today's guest is I'm a huge fan of this illustrator, this web cartoonist. I have George Gant joining me tonight.
What's up? Hey, how's it going?
Good. This is one of those easy interviews I have because I've been a fan of your work for so long. So I know all the questions I want to ask. I'm just going to be rattling them off all night. But also, I have to make sure that I give you the opportunity to introduce yourself because I'm always assume that everybody knows who you are, who these creators are. But I want to make sure that you get the opportunity to introduce yourself and what you do. So without further ado, please give us your 30-second spiel.
Okay, my name is George. I'm a webcomic artist, cartoonist, and I'm the creator of the webcomic Beware Toddler. It's a comic strip loosely based on my own life as a stay-at-home parent. We've got a few other webcomics. I'm working on other comics as well, but Toddler is like my main one right now.
And so I've been following your work for a while, and it seems to me, or maybe it wasn't, but it does seem to me that Beware the Toddler, the popularity, and that's probably your most popular work to date. It's like the popularity of that webcomic came to as a bit of a surprise for you.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for a minute. Like this month, in fact, this week will make like 15 years. My 15 years of drawing webcomics.
Okay.
And Toddler was one that I didn't really plan. It was an unplanned comic, but I didn't plan it. Not really, and I kind of drew it out of nowhere, and a lot of people really liked it off the bat. Like it just kind of like blew up. Well, it blew up for me, just like out of nowhere.
Oh, so you said you've been doing this for 15 years. Did you ever work traditionally?
Yeah.
What other books have you worked on?
Well, I started traditionally. When I first started, it was just pen and ink. I would color on my computer, but like when I first started, I used like some janky program that came with my printer. Like I don't even remember the name. Like I didn't use Photoshop. It was a couple years before I even touched Photoshop.
Okay.
But so I used this janky thing, and then and I colored like I did everything by like pen and ink and colored for years. Like eventually, like I discovered GIMP.
Okay, yeah,
Because it was like Photoshop and it was free.
right.
And I used that for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, most of the comics, uh, I have a previous series. It's called On the Grind.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those comics were done in GIMP. Still,
Oh wow,
still,
okay.
mhm. Still pencil and inked. Colored in GIMP, colored with a mouse.
Mm.
Because I didn't even have a tablet. Like, I didn't have a tablet for a minute either. And it wasn't until I want to say like halfway through Underground's run where I decided that I try to just do the comics digitally, and even
Mm.
that took me years to like really figure out how to do.
No, yeah, I've experienced that transition from working from traditional to the digital format,
Mhm.
and it does take a little bit of getting used to. I use Clip Studio Paint myself, um, um, and I really enjoy that platform as far as web comics and stuff like that. Um, Compared to the two, like digital and traditional, have you become to the point where it's like is the webcomic platform your the platform that you prefer, or is it the platform that is sort of like working right now, you're just sticking with it?
It's the one I prefer. And like going back to Clip Studio, like I guess I should have mentioned that I use Clip Studio exclusively now,
Yeah, yeah.
and now I'm at a point where all of my work is completely digital with Clip Studio, and I'm trying to emulate that traditional work. But
Hmm.
that's like a personal goal of mine because all of our influences were all of my influences were traditional comic strips. But
Hmm.
going back to the webcomic format and it's more or less like the comic strip format because you see more like superhero things and like manga like
Hmm.
becoming webcomics. I've been big into that like since I was a kid.
Hmm.
Like since like Calvin and Hobbes and Bloom County and all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
Bloom County's favorite.
Actually, I just got the collection for Father's Day, so I'm like, I can't wait to
The
dig into that.
most recent one.
All of them, like the original run,
Oh, okay.
uh, the '80s run,
Mm-hmm.
because it was one of the comic strips that I discovered, like one of the first comic strips I read. That's not like Garfield or Snoopy.
Right.
It was Calvin and Hobbes and Bloom County, but I've always been like a fan of that format, the comic strip format.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I decided I wanted to do webcomics of my own,
Mm-hmm.
I was influenced by other comic strips, like even other webcomics, like Penny Arcade.
Mm-hmm.
And around the same time, it was the Boondocks.
Yeah.
So like those really appealed to me. And when I decided to start, I knew I wanted to do strips, and I've been doing
Mm-hmm.
strips ever since.
No, yeah, I'm a huge fan of the strip format, and I've been I think I've dabbled a little. I think I've done one or two like short web comics. I enjoy the challenge of being able to tell a story, a complete story, in such a small window of time to a degree, and
Yeah, exactly.
like not everybody can pull it off. It's like it's definitely a gift, if you can write for strips, uh, that's a that's a form of writing in and of itself. It's not necessarily like writing for comics, but I also find some of the best comics, the writer knows how to um, complete a page. Knows how to tell this story, whatever that scene is, know how to
Mhm.
complete that scene on a single page within 5 to 6 panels. Again, in a very small window of time, as opposed to having to draw out a story over pages and pages and several panels and things like that. But so so I've noticed it's like web comics, the approach, especially for indies. I've noticed is that the webcomic platform, it offers the opportunity for creators to really grow their audience, and um, offers them the opportunity to monetize their work uh, over time. And compared to, I've noticed, like compared to formats like Kickstarter,
Mm,
and but I'm a huge fan of a lot of web comics that are on Patreon, for instance.
mhm.
And well, I was wondering, like, what has been your take on that? Have you, as far as using web comics to introduce yourself as a creator, introduce your characters and your work, compared to other platforms, as far as creating traditional comics and comic books? How's the web comic world treated you in that regard?
Well, well, it's weird because I've done both.
Hmm.
I've done full books and I've done webcomics as well. But with me, well, for the longest time, I wanted to make comics. I knew this is what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
How to monetize it was a whole other issue, you know,
Right.
because it's not
Hmm.
easy. And
No.
I, for the most part, I just give away my comics for free. You know,
Hmm.
any money that I made from my comics doesn't come from the comics directly, but comes from
Mm.
freelancing opportunities as a
Right.
result of the comics that I make for free.
Mm.
So that's
Mm.
actually how I make most of my money anyway,
Mm.
as a freelancer for other projects. But people like when people do Patreon and things like that, like I, I like the idea. I have a Patreon. I'm terrible at it. I need to
Mm.
up I need to update it.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things I need to improve. And that's something that I would actually like to do like even more in the future. Like with some of my older web comics, I'd like to introduce them to like just put them on Patreon, you know,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
people are asking for it, but at the same time it costs money to host.
Mm.
So put it on Patreon and just let it take care of itself. That's
Hmm.
on a to-do list, but I have a very long to-do list right now.
Oh, okay.
But no, like whatever it takes to get your work noticed. I like the Patreon example. I like
Mm.
the Kickstarter method that I'm planning as
Hmm.
well. So for me, that's like as far as like trying to monetize your comics, that's still like a fairly new thing for
Hmm.
me because all of my money comes from freelancing and things
Mm.
of that sort. But I'm gonna figure it out. I'm trying.
No, no, I think you're well on your way. I think even still, your success is sort of does fit the model, the typical model that I've seen most successful web comics have. Like they build an audience, and you have a fairly large one on webtoons. Um, and then they usually move to some type of platform like Patreon, or they do crowdfunding where they actually publish a book or things like that. Um, so I've always, with like between you and say for instance, Chuck Collins, who does the bouncer. Uh, there's not a ton of us out here doing like Steph Williams. I think she does a couple of web comics. There's not a ton of us out there really doing a lot of web comics, at least unless some other names you'd like to share. But I noticed like there's not a lot of us out there, but the vast majority of them who have really stepped out and done it, like Anthony Piper was doing web comics for a while.
Right.
uh, they've all been, it seems like a very smart approach, as far as growing the audience and introducing people to properties. I just don't see it done as often. I think it should be done more often. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I guess because with me, and because I've been doing it so long,
Hmm.
it's kind of nice to see that people are doing this and they're getting their audiences and they're getting their name out there. Um, like I love what Chuck is doing. Chuck has inspired me,
Hmm.
and Chuck has said that I've inspired him before. Oh, I doubt he feels the same way now. He'd probably be like, George, man, forget him. I don't know. Um, Same with Anthony. Anthony's one of the few that I've actually been able to meet in person. That he's really, really nice dude, really cool dude.
Mhm,
So it's kind of
mhm,
nice to see that that there's this section. There's a section of well, you know what? Okay, let me put it this way. It's nice to see that there are creators like doing this with their comics. It's not just about
mhm.
I'm trying to create the next Superman or the next Batman or the next Marvel.
Right,
Like
right.
people are willing to they're creating diverse comics, and not that there's
Mhm.
anything wrong with creating superheroes or anything like that, but it's nice to see creators that remind me of me, you know,
Mm. Mhm, mhm.
reminds me of me, and not that I'm looking for any heroes or anything like that because I'm old, but but it's good to know people, like-minded individuals,
Right.
and there are more out there, and I can't spout some more creators, but it's really neat.
Mhm. Now, can you walk us through your not so much your creative process, but what's the grind like? That's one of the biggest things as far as web comics and Patreon in particular is sort of like that I am intimidated by or apprehensive about is that I know that once that ball starts rolling, I gotta push out work. Now, maybe not so much on a daily, but it's got to be pretty consistent every week. You got fans waiting. That means that you have to be drawing. You have to at least be sketching and coming up with new ideas and the things like that. So, what is your creative process, or more importantly, your production process like for
Oh,
webcomics?
for me, it's all chaos. It's like straight
Uh,
100% chaos. Let me just point that out. Okay, for me, I know I keep saying that I'm old, but like as someone who's been doing it for a long time, my process and all this has changed over the years.
Mhm.
Um, for me, the most important thing is to be consistent. You've got to be consistent. Like
Mhm.
you just can't draw something and then not draw anything 8 months later and assume that
Right.
people will be there for you. Like that's
Right.
asinine. But for me, I I'm not terribly organized, but I will try to come up with like general ideas of what I like to do with my comics.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll write it down, I'll type it out, and when it comes time to draw, I when it's time to draw, I'll sit down and I'll like plan everything out then. And half the
Okay.
time when I'm making comics, it's like I got this idea, I drew half of it. I hate this idea. I throw it away and draw something completely from scratch.
Mhm.
I cannot tell you how I did that yesterday, but I can't tell
Oh
you how
wow.
many, how many times I've done that. But yeah, for me, come up with a general idea,
Mhm.
sit down. You know when you want to post. Um, you should know when people look at your work the most as well.
Okay.
So so I'll take either that or I'll take, when do well, I'm not gonna say when do I feel like drawing because you have to draw, otherwise you won't get an audience.
Mhm.
But so for me, up until recently, I've been posting my comics on Friday. So on Thursday, um, I'll sit down, I'll use one of the ideas I already have, and I'll just I'll sketch out a comic,
Mhm.
and then just go from there. A lot of it is improvisation. It's
Hmm.
almost like my comic is like an improv comic
Okay.
because I'll take an idea and I'll flesh it out as I'm drawing it.
Mhm.
And one thing I've been doing lately is I've been actually like doing like timeline videos, like showing the drawings themselves as they happen. And
Mhm.
if you've seen a few of them, you'll notice that things are wildly different in the end than they are when they started.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, but and you also notice that for me, like my process isn't this comic needs to look like I just can't put out anything. I've got to put out something, and it's got to be relevant to what I'm doing, and it's got to look better than what I did last week.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's why sometimes like my art style will change a little bit
Mm.
because I'll see something, I'll be like, you know what, this might work better here. Let's try this. Let's see what happens. I'm a very, I can't even say it, but yeah, just I'll sit down, pencils, inks, colors. I may rewrite. I'll rewrite the thing. I may
Mm.
redraw a panel right then and there. But once I sit down and start that comic, I don't get up until it's done.
See,
Uh,
I really like that idea because there's been a few writers that I've interviewed, and that's becoming a recurring theme. Is that when you ask them about writer's block or something like that, immediately they says there's no room for it because the pressure of having to produce or meet a deadline sort of like eliminates the idea. It's like either, and it's sort of like it sort of takes out because it's such a huge part of writer's block is fear of it being bad, and that time crunch. It's almost like, well, you don't want to put out a bad one or a bad comic or a bad story, but at the same time, uh, you have to. What's more important is to get it done, right? And so I
done is
find
better
it
than
very
perfect.
right, and I think that's a huge thing for a lot of beginning cartoonists or comic book creators to learn. It's like um, good is definitely better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. I teach that a lot as far as when I teach kids comics. It's like I just the biggest thing I try to focus on for them is like to leave with something, something completed. It's not so much about uh, it being immaculate and things like that. It's about actually going home to put on something to put on your refrigerator.
Right.
So I really, really like that idea that as far as and I like doing interviews where I can leave tips like this for beginning creators, comic book creators, and I think that's a huge tip that for anybody that's into web comics, definitely should take away. Do you have any more tips that you would share with a beginning creator?
I mean, consistency is the most important thing. Like you got to be creative. Like
Hmm.
like you never want to tell anyone what to do, but even if you don't want to draw, um, if you don't do it, someone else will.
Hmm.
And that's one thing that I've noticed, especially with me and with Toddler, is if you have an idea and people like that idea, they are going to try to emulate that idea.
Hmm.
And so if you don't do it, then someone else will.
Hmm.
Cause like yeah, with Tyler, like once I made like my those first few, like other people, I mean, parenting comics are not new,
Hmm.
not by any stretch of the imagination. But
Hmm.
once I started mine, I noticed that a lot of people that I know or that I've heard of doing similar things
Hmm.
in the vein that I do it, because there are things that I do that I know that only I do.
Hmm.
But and to each his own. And I can't say that it hasn't bothered me before, but again, if you don't do it, someone else will.
Hmm. And I think that's good. If nothing else, you have uh, to a degree, you have an adversary, like you're not to say like these people are bad or trying to do you harm, but just the idea that you're up against someone that also provides additional motivation. I would imagine. Uh, I know it works for me. I find adversaries all the time, just to help motivate me to keep going. I want to go back a little bit about the creation of the Tyler, only because it seems like it was such a diversion from what you were doing before, and it's like, can you talk about about how sort of like discovering a hit or like discovering an idea that works, like I understand like you sort of stumbled into it, but at the same time it's like, what was the how did you know that you were on to something, and what was it that made you want to maybe made you pivot, to this particular story?
Okay, well, around the time I was doing another comic strip,
Hmm.
it was a video game comic
Right.
called The Reset Button,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to say I was feeling stagnant doing it, but at the same time, this was a web comic aimed at a younger audience,
Hmm.
and I'm sitting there trying to promote it like through social media, and it didn't hit me back then that that wasn't the best idea. It wasn't the smartest idea. Your audience isn't on social media.
Okay.
Um, but so I was getting kind of stagnant, so I decided that instead of doing this web comic for this kid's comic, I'm going to do a straight up comic book.
Okay.
And I did the book, and the book is almost done. But at the same time, I was missing drawn comic strips, and um, at the time, my daughter was about a week away from turning 2,
Mm-hmm.
so she was a toddler. She was doing all those toddler things, and
Right.
and one day I thought I'd play like a prank on her, so I just hid in the closet and just to see what she would do. She found me right away.
Oh wow.
I, I don't know how, but she found me right away, and I thought that was the funniest thing. So I just drew it in a comic right then and there.
Hmm.
And my reset button comics were okay. Like people responded to them, but when I put out that first Beware Toddler comic, like people just liked it right away. You
Hmm.
know, I came out with the term Beware Toddler on the spot. I made sure it wasn't taken, and luckily for me, it wasn't. Um, and people really liked it. So I started thinking about it, and I started thinking maybe I should do something with this. Let's just try it out. Let's do another one. So
Hmm.
I did a second comic, and
Hmm.
then way more people like like that one. And I don't even think it was a funny comic. Like I personally don't think it was funny, but like way more people liked it. So I created this Facebook page and did another comic. And next thing I know, this Facebook page has 500 followers.
Mm.
And I've only been doing this thing for about a week at this time. So boom, it's off to the races.
Okay.
So I'm doing this thing, and now here we are, like 2 years later, uh 13 and a half followers on Facebook, 7,000 on Webtoon, and it's this thing where I'm seeing people like tagging Beware Toddler like it's this long running franchise and not this thing I threw together 2 years ago. And how can I not continue it? You know?
Right. Hmm.
But I'm happy for it, and I've got things planned, and I'm excited for it.
Okay. Yeah, you did mention a long to do list that you have. Did you want to share any of that list or not
Uh,
yet?
there's one I do want to share because I've been teasing it for months,
Okay.
and that is the book.
Mm.
So I'm working on a Beware of Tyler book collection. It's going to be the first 100 strips.
Okay.
Um, and I've got my title. I'm working on a cover. I will. This is one. This is going to be my first attempt at a Kickstarter.
Hmm. Okay.
So I'm a bit terrified, and I'm going to formally announce it. I guess this is my formal announcement. You
Okay.
know,
Cool.
Beware Tyler book Kickstarter coming next month.
All
Um,
right.
and over the next week or so, I'm going to put out the title. Well, forget it. The title is going to be titled Toddlerhood.
Okay.
Toddlerhood, a Beware Toddler collection. I will debut the cover next week, hopefully. And yeah, man. I want the Kickstarter to start in September.
Okay. No, I liked, and again that's part of that whole um that's part of that whole formula, building your audience on web comics, right? On a platform like Webtoons or in social media, and then once you build that audience, and then you move them to some type of form of monetization, whether it's Patreon or a Kickstarter, like you're doing. So, like, again, it seems like everything, it seems to be adding up. Are you looking to plan you? So once you self-publish, are you looking for a publisher after that?
No, no. I've done that before, and no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. I've had that. My first two underground books were actually published, and the experience wasn't ideal. And I don't
Okay.
know if it was on the account of the publisher or myself, the quality of the comics, or
Mm,
what, but I feel confident doing it myself this first time around.
okay.
But shortly after the book, people are telling me I need to find representation. I need to seek an agent of some sort. So that's going to be my next step after that.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially when I interview a lot of indies that are either on the verge of something big, or they have just crossed over that threshold, like where they're finding an agent or they have work that has been optioned and things like that. Um, I've noticed it's like about a 10-year span, like
Mm,
from start to not necessarily finish, but a 10-year span where they before they move into that next level, right?
right.
And it seems like no matter how whatever it is you do in that 10 years, you definitely have to put in that work or that time
Mm,
before you enter into that next conversation, right? So
mm. You got to put in your
so
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours, there it is. And I promise you, every successful writer or illustrator or publisher that I've had on this show, they've all put in 10,000 hours. It's always
Mm,
been that 10-year window, and it doesn't seem like there's any way around it. So
right.
that's another tip that you could definitely, I always pass on to beginners, is that you should be looking at what's your 10-year plan look like, right?
Mm.
Another thing I like to ask, right, especially writers, but since you're a cartoonist, you do both. Speaking of that 10 years or that 10,000 hours, how much of your success right now has been uh, planned or orchestrated, or like you actually wrote it out, or how much of it has been sort of like by chance? Like, if you could give a percentage, like how much of it been sort of just happenstance, or how much of it has been like
Um,
literally like you wrote it out to be this way?
um, this is all happenstance. I
Oh.
mean, okay, well, let me preface this by saying that drawing comics, drawing cartoons has been a life goal.
Mhm.
How much planning has gone behind this? Not much. Because like I'll do something if it works, great. If not, I'll do something else.
Mhm.
But I'm not a planner by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, I understand.
And
No, it's just interesting. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, but if I had to put a percentage to it, I'd say maybe 75-25.
That's not bad.
75 by happenstance. 25, I know what I want to do, and I know what I know wanted to do. Didn't know how to get there,
Mhm.
but I was going to try to do it anyway. The other
Okay.
75 is people like Beware Tyler, and that's the only reason you're here.
I mean,
So,
people just assume, like, especially when they see something like Bill Red Tyler, it's sort of like um, it just happened all of a sudden. Like, they don't see all the work that went into it leading up to that point, or all the years and decades of work and dedication that you did to the craft before you got to this point. Um, so, you know, again, most people need to understand that, yeah, like if you're seeing this product and you're enjoying the quality of it, just 99 times out of 10, there's been decades worth of learning and mistakes and struggles behind that, that work to make it so great for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was going to say that people see the success off of those first three Beware Toddler strips, but they didn't see the
Mm-hmm.
other 600 comic strips I drew before that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people know, not a lot of people know that Toddler is my fourth webcomic, so it takes a lot to get
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that I noticed, like a lot of beginner cartoonists don't realize, is that it does take a long time, and they'll get discouraged. Why isn't anybody supporting me? Why is that? Because it takes a long time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're 22, you'll be all right.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning. This is the beginning, and when you're in your late 30s and you've been plugging away, and people are starting to notice, that's still the beginning. It's a
Mm-hmm.
marathon. It's not a sprint. Just be patient, focus on the
Right.
work, and you'll be okay.
No, yep, you're absolutely right. I kind of got started in my 40s, late 30s, 40s, um, just doing a little bit that I do. I don't necessarily consider myself a professional comic book artist, but the what I do, I've been doing it for about 10 years, and I definitely see how things tend to open up after that, even for me after that 10-year window for sure. I
Mhm.
wanted to talk about something that it might be a little personal, but I thought I did see you comment on it. Um, and being that you are a stay-at-home dad,
Mhm.
there was an article that was talking about, comic book artists and the fact that it was an article where this, a fairly popular artist was talking about how he wouldn't be successful if it wasn't for the fact that his spouse brought in a significant income or something like that, and
Mhm.
how this spouse like basically supported his career. And then he had like a ton of artists and creators. This it wasn't just about lamenting about the industry and how low the pay is and things like that. It was really talking about the just the family structure of how
Mm.
the thing that around the industry, other things around the industry that are affected by this. And I wanted wanted to see if you wanted to share anything to that in that regard, because I found it very interesting. And I know what I found interesting about that is that I see a lot of even successful independent creators, but they rarely speak to the fact that they have a spouse that really helps them out. And
Mm.
you know for whatever reason they don't necessarily share that, but I found it interesting and inspiring that you actually have success, sharing the fact that you're a stay-at-home dad,
Mm.
and things like that. And I just wanted you to have the opportunity to speak or expound on that whole
Okay.
topic a little bit.
Well, I did see that article. I saw that whole
Mhm.
thing. I was there too, and yeah, yeah. I'm in the same boat. Like, I don't think that I would be anywhere near where I am today if it wasn't for my spouse. And that's a very hard thing to admit,
Mm,
because that's one of those things that if you admit it, like, people will there will be people that will look down on you.
mm,
Oh, you're the man. Why aren't you supporting your family? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't
right.
you doing that? And for me, and it's actually why I became a stay-at-home dad, was because when I found out, when me and my wife found out we were having a kid, I was working in a restaurant,
Mm,
and 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 I was working in a restaurant. I had just got hired to do a children's book at the same time,
mm,
and I thought to myself that I work in a restaurant. I'm living off of tips. My pay isn't great. It would be cheaper. Like, I make less money than it would cost for daycare, for childcare.
right. Right.
So that's my logic. So I'll stay home. I'll take care of him. I'll try to get this art thing up. We'll see if it works. And my wife went along with it, and it has not been easy.
Mm,
Like, it hasn't been a piece of cake, and there are struggles. There are good months and there are bad months.
mm,
There was one year where I made almost no money.
Mm,
like completely, and that was very difficult because my wife works for the government. Like
mm,
she's doing all right. I'm not. I
yeah.
at the time I was working in a restaurant. I was drawing cartoons on the side. I had a couple clients, but nothing that'll like really pay bills.
Mm,
And my that was a very difficult thing because it's like it's a sacrifice for the entire family when someone tries to build up themselves up and build up what they hope to be a career.
mm,
And people will look down on you like that, but at the same time, it's the same thing as say if my wife decided she wanted to go to law school,
mm,
or if I decided I wanted to go back to school,
right.
you it's basically you're sacrificing yourself to build a better life for yourself. But at the same time, if you say like, I think it's because you're an artist and there's this stigma that artists don't make money.
Right.
Um, is that people will look down upon you for that. And yeah, it's kind of hard to make a living being an artist, but at the same time, you know, it's harder. It's harder to make a living as an artist without a support system.
Mm-hmm.
Like either like, and it is weird. It's like financially, you got to have a great support system to be an artist. So it's like a double-edged sword. But time
Mm-hmm.
wise, being an artist is a single person's game.
True.
So so there's no winning. But if you work hard, you put in the work, you put in your 10,000 hours. Um, if you're a little bit lucky, because luck does factor into it,
True.
you can do it. But going back to
Mm-hmm.
the original thing, yeah, man, I don't think I would be doing anything that I'm doing right now if it wasn't for my support system, and primarily that is my wife.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's typical of most artists, regardless of gender. That as well. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a ton of artists out there that they have a support system, whether that support system be a spouse or support system be uh, another job, right? It's
Right.
like I work a 9 to 5, on top of this, or things of that nature. Uh, it was something about the article that typically artists have like this love-hate relationship with the industry, where it's like, of course, it doesn't pay as well as they would want it to, but I find that most artists, they tend to find success in other areas on top of that as well. So it's like, it's not like, for instance, it's like I can definitely imagine that this would be a different conversation 5 years from now once you actually have an agent. This is like, these things definitely go in cycles, and this sacrifice, just like you were saying, like being in school, or uh, uh, sacrificing your time to do certain things is sort of like the payoff. It's like, should be, it's well worth it if you're putting in the time. So it's like, no one's suggesting that you know you do this and loaf around for sure. It's like, we all burning the midnight oil, or putting in that still putting in those additional 10,000 hours,
Mhm.
getting ready for that next level, the next level up for sure.
Right.
um and uh do you have any other, I know that you're looking to, your game comic, you're looking to bring that back actually in print, right? The actual comic book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Um,
And then
the idea, the
what's the
idea
name
is,
of
oh,
the
sorry.
name of that book is,
It's called the reset
it's called,
button,
yeah, the reset button, right?
and the general idea is, the main character is the son of a formerly famous video game character,
Oh, okay.
and he wants to follow that legend, and he wants to do all the things his dad did, but he has to go to school.
Mm,
So the idea is he's this entitled kid who needs to learn how to get his act together while going to a school that's basically It's okay. It's like what I think My Hero Academia is,
Hmm.
but predates My Hero Academia because I've
Yes.
been working on this in some way, or shape, or form. Predates Video Game High School
Hmm.
and is for a younger audience.
It reminds me a lot of like just imagine if like those Saturday morning cartoons with like Donkey Kong Jr. or even I think it was Captain Nintendo or some it was some
So Captain N.
yeah it's Captain Nintendo. It's like it has that kind of vibe to it. Or just imagine if I guess Donkey Kong Jr. had a had a Saturday morning cartoon. That's the kind of vibe I get from that comic for sure. Now, do you prefer? Because I know you prefer strips. It's like you're one of the few. Another again, you're one of the few artists out there that prefers like creating comics for all ages comics. It's
Mhm.
like um, what is it about? Have you ever thought about doing more something that's more adult, or do you just tend to just like as being a parent? Do you tend to like doing all ages books?
Well, I've done more adult things before. Uh,
Mhm.
Going back to Reset Button, this version of Reset Button is actually a reboot of a more PG-13 Reset Button I did like years ago.
Mm.
When I was just like I was basically aping Family Guy. It was horrible,
Oh,
but I've actually lettered some books that you wouldn't assume like that letter. I'm actually lettering a book now that's more adult fare. But as far
okay.
as creating more adult things, um, I don't see the need, to be honest.
Hmm.
Like a few years ago, I read this article. I forgot who said it, but it was about stand up comedy, and they basically say it's easy to tell a dirty joke, and the challenge is doing it when it's clean.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that has stuck with me for years.
Hmm.
Um, and that drives a lot of what I do. Like with Beware Toddler. Beware Toddler, for some reason, people think is a kids comic, but it's not. But at the same time, it's not dirty.
Right.
So I like to do like things like that where I want to do comics that everybody can read, regardless of how old you are.
Mm.
At the same time, I don't need to put adult content in my work because if the content can stand on its own without it, then I know
Mhm.
I'm doing a semi-respectable job.
Yeah.
You know?
Oddly enough, especially with that book or with that comic, technically it is an adult comic because parents identify with it, right? And so it's like we are an audience. People don't typically look at parents as a comic book or comic strip audience, but technically, when you think about it, we are a unique audience that that you can tell stories to us because we definitely identify with it. It's like that Tyler age. We all um exactly identify exactly what you're going through, know exactly what that's like. um and it's like a very unique niche. I think parents is a very unique niche. I got about 10 minutes left. I wanted you to see if I want to give you some time to share the last project that at least that I saw, and I actually got a chance to read some of it. The birthday comic with
Mhm.
Greg with Greg and Alici. Um,
Mhm.
Alici, can you tell us about that book?
Yes. Well, first of all, Greg is amazing. That's an awesome
Yeah.
dude, just all around. Um, that book is man, it's actually like in the vein of my own comics.
Mhm.
It's about Insana. Uh, it's about his younger years. It's a prequel to the main comic. An all ages comic, in fact.
Mhm.
It's very much a PG comic, and it tells the story of one of Insana's birthdays.
Mhm.
And in this comic, he sneaks out with his friends, and they just spend the day together for his birthday. And Sana doesn't relate to his family, but he relates to his friends, and they go out and they have fun, but they run into trouble along the way.
Mhm.
And and I mean, I don't know what else I can say without spoiling the book. But we just finished our Kickstarter. It's fully funded. The book is like 99.9% done. I'm doing like one last thing um,
Okay.
for it, but just creating that book was an amazing experience. Greg's a great writer, very patient man because it takes me forever to do anything. Because I live my Tyler comics as much as I draw them. So like I'm like trying to draw comics with my kids in the background. My wife is working from home right now, and it's just it's all been a mess. But he's been very patient.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's been a while. Like my daughter's actually come back here like a couple times. But
Uh,
we were recording. But yeah, so the book is pretty much done. Just finishing one last thing for it. And then it's off to the races. But it's been a fun experience. It's been nice to do something that's not Tyler related, that's not reset related, but still
mhm.
within my wheelhouse. Still touches on the themes of like parenting, and
Mm.
it was kind of neat to deal with things from the viewpoint of the child, which is actually like the other half of Beware Toddler. You know how
Mhm.
like you have the comics that tell like the dad dealing with the toddler, and the other half of the comics are telling from the toddler's viewpoint. Here, I get to
Mhm.
like do things from inside his viewpoint.
Mhm.
Um, being a child of a parent who doesn't understand him. Um, at the same time, being able to just have fun, with your friends, and then I get to do action on top of that.
Mhm.
Um, it was just a really fun experience. Something I'd like to return to at some point.
Oh, cool. Now on Beware the Tyler, do you? I noticed, like for instance, you introduce your not just you have two children, right? You introduce your
Mhm.
other child in the story. Um, do you see yourself introducing the other characters or um, your wife, even other characters into the story?
Other characters, yes. My wife, no.
Uh,
And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Um,
okay.
I'm influenced by like old school like comic strips like Peanuts and things like that.
Mm.
And my wife not showing up like her full face or anything showing up is like a Peanuts thing. You never heard the
Yeah,
grown up speak.
I've noticed that. Like, cause there's some, I think there's some strips where she's there, like either on the phone or at the door or something like that, but she's not there. Right.
Mhm. So because like that's kind of like my homage there is that the mother
Mm.
character never shows up. Also, the comic is about a stay at home father.
Yeah,
So having a mother there kind of defeats that purpose. And the
I can
only
see that.
time I would do something like that. So okay, well, let me put it this way: the only time I would feel comfortable showing a mother is in a medium that's not the comic strip.
Got it.
Any other media is fair game.
Hmm.
I do want to do a storyline with the mother. I have one in mind. I'm just trying to figure out how to do it in the comic strip, but
Hmm.
without showing her face.
That's crazy. Yeah. No, I can see that.
But if I'm ever
Yeah, we got
fortunate to where Tyler the animated series, the mother will be there. But as far as
okay.
like Tyler comic strip, not quite, not fully.
No, I like the idea of her being like you said, like in the Peanuts, like she's sort of just like this character that's sort of always off camera, but it does creates that world, like that, not so much that you're one of the kids, but you're a part of the fantasy and all the stuff that goes on with raising the child. It's sort of like
Mm.
a world in and of its own. So I do like the way that you brought that aspect in. We got about 4 minutes before we close out. How can we find? Of course, how can we read this comic? Where can we find your comics and all your work?
I mean, you can always follow like all the socials at Beware of Toddler. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I post at least once a week.
Mhm.
I do have a website, bewareoftoddler.com. It needs updating, but it's there. Um, I am on Webtoon. If you go to Webtoon, you could always search for Beware Toddler. I don't have a formal URL for that, but we're there. Uh, we're on Spinwiz Comics. If you want to search there, that they're there. Um, where else? I'm sure I'm missing something.
On Instagram, beware. I think.
Yep. On Instagram, Beware of Toddler.
Mhm.
Any of my personal socials, my name's right there. You can read Beware Toddler there. Um, the book will be out soon, hopefully. I'm making the book.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put up the Kickstarter next month.
can't
Um,
wait. Can't wait, man.
yeah, man, and I'm working on some things beyond that. Not necessarily in the comic space. Um,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, those are the main places for now.
All right, cool. And yeah, again, please follow my friend George Gant on all the social media platforms. Check out Beware the Tyler web comic. It's a really great comic. You'll really enjoy it, especially if you're a parent. Um, Also, follow us on Instagram at Black Comics Universe. Check out the website, blackcomicsuniverse.com. We have swag there available. We're going to be adding some new t-shirts there. Uh, Also, please follow, like, and share the experience at _EXP. And on behalf of everybody here at the experience and Black Comics Universe, this is Imani Latif, and I'm signing off. Thanks a lot, George.
Thank you.
All right.